Hi there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and today I'm going to be doing a recommendation video that is going to include a bunch of books. If you guys don't already know, I am co-hosting a weekend Kindle Unlimited readathon with a bunch of other ladies. This readathon was created by Jess over at Peace Love Books, and there's a total of 10 hosts for this readathon. I will be sure to link them all down below. This Kindle Unlimited weekend readathon is taking place from the 27th to the 29th of December, so it runs from a Friday to a Sunday. I'll link my announcement video down below as well if you want to go check that out. But I knew I wanted to give you guys a lot of recommendations because I do read a bunch of Kindle Unlimited books. I read romance, but I also have read some other genres through the service as well. I have about 10 different themes and tropes I'm going to go over, and I'm going to have a couple of recommendations for each. And then at the end, I'm going to talk about a handful of books that aren't romances in case those aren't your thing, but you still want to participate. As always, I'll link all the books down below, and let's get right into it. So if you're looking for an emotional romance, I think that Brittany C. Cherry writes some really emotional romances. The first one I read by her was Disgrace, and this one is kind of a Romeo and Juliet situation where the two main characters' families are rivaling. So if you like that kind of scenario, I think you would really enjoy this one. And then we have Eleanor and Gray, which you guys know I love that book. It is very emotional. It's kind of a second chance romance. The two main characters, Ellie and Grayson, they meet in high school. They have a romance and a friendship, and then they haven't seen each other for years, and now I think they're in their 30s, and Eleanor is now the nanny to Grayson's kids. This one had me sobbing so much, so if you're in the mood for a good cry, I would recommend this one. And then the last one I have by her is The Gravity of Us, and this one is a very emotional book as well. It is a single father as well as a kind of taboo romance. I don't want to say much else about it, but it is very good. It's the fourth in a series, but you definitely don't have to read the series in order. And then one I don't hear much praise about, but I absolutely love it, is On the Way to You by Candy Steiner. Her books can be very emotional, and this one is a new adult romance about a girl who is disabled. It's been a while since I've read it, but I believe one of her legs is amputated, and she works really hard, but she kind of comes from a pretty bad family, and she hasn't traveled, and that's been her dream for years, is to travel. And she's especially been wanting to go to Seattle, and she meets this really hot guy in the diner where she works, and he is coincidentally taking a road trip to Seattle, and he offers to give her a ride. And it's a road trip romance, but also extremely emotional because both of them are going through some pretty difficult things in their lives. And then the last emotional one I have is Brightside by Kim Holden, and this is also a new adult romance, but it takes place in a college setting, and it's about a girl who's going through some pretty difficult things in her life, and she meets another guy who works at her favorite coffee shop, and he is also dealing with some difficult things too. And this one will definitely rip your heart out. It is very good. And then I know they aren't for everyone, but if you're kind of in the mood to read a love triangle, I have a few recommendations for that one. The first one is the What He Doesn't Know duet by Candy Steiner. The first one is What He Doesn't Know, and the second book is What He Always Knew. And this is about a woman who is married and she's really unhappy in her marriage, and a guy she used to have a crush on comes back into her life and shows her all this affection and is totally in love with her, and she's kind of deciding what to do about her marriage and whether or not she should leave her husband for this other guy. It's definitely a love triangle. It's full of angst, and you're left in suspense until the very end of book number 2 to know who she chooses. And then I have Heartbreak Warfare by Heather Orgeron and Kate Stewart. This is a love triangle that takes place in a military setting. All of our love interests in this story are active duty military, including the heroine, and she ends up having an emotional affair of some sorts with a guy on deployment, and they go through something really traumatic together, and she's kind of trying to decide if she should choose her husband or this guy that she works with. Again, very emotional and very taboo. And then the most recent one I've read is Drive by Kate Stewart. This is about a girl who's in love with music, and she kind of falls for her sister's best friend, but she also has a love interest that ends up being her boss at a newspaper that she writes for. And what I love about all of these choices is you don't really know the right choice, and I like when the choice isn't super obvious and super clear. It just adds to the angst of the story, and I think all of these are really good choice if you want a good love triangle. And if you're looking for a very sweet romance that is the very opposite of the ones I mentioned, these ones don't have very much angst and don't have a lot of drama. The first one is Baking with a Rock Star by Jasmine Miller. This is the first book in a companion series, and it's a small town romance series. And this one is about a rock star, but he is not a traditional rock star. He is totally a sweetheart, and it is his romance with a single mother. It is very good. Like I said, it's low on the drama, low on the angst, and it's really feel good, and he's a very swoon-worthy hero. And then more recently, I read His Royal Highness by R.S. Gray, and this is about two main characters who both work at a Disneyland type of theme park. The heroine plays a princess, and the hero is the grandson to the owner of the park, and he ends up having to play His Royal Highness, who is right next to the princess. And it is their romance, and it is very magical because it does take place at a theme park with castles and very magical things. And like I said, it's low on angst, low on drama. It's just really feel good. If you're in the mood for a sports read, I'd really recommend Wildcat by Max Monroe. It is the first book in the Mavericks Tackle Love series, and it is a football romance, and it is about a football player who I believe he's a quarterback, and he ends up falling for a flight attendant. He frequently flies back and forth to home, and she ends up working most of the flights that he takes, and he falls for her, and this one is really cute. Then we have The Lineup by Megan Quinn. This is her most recent release, and it's a baseball romance. It is book 3 in a series, but you could technically read it as a standalone. I would recommend any of the books in the series, but this one is my favorite. And this is about a woman who ends up winning a date with a pro baseball star, and she doesn't want to go because she had a crush on him in college and she never spoke up, but he will not take no for an answer, and he starts to pursue this woman, and it is a really good romance. I love the main hero, whose name is Jason. He is like the perfect swoon-worthy hero, so I'd really recommend this one. And then we have The Bombshell Effect by Carla Sorensen. This is the first book in the Washington Wolf series, and this is also a football romance. And our hero in this story is like the main player on this team, and a girl moves in next door to him, and he's super rude to her. He's a single dad, and he thinks that she's coming on to him, but really she's just being neighborly. And it turns out that her father is the one who owns the Mavericks, and he just passed away or something like that. So she ends up having to be the owner and the boss of the team, and so now she's his new boss, and it's kind of awkward because he was a total jerk. This one was really funny, and I'd really recommend if you're looking for a good laugh. And then I love small town romances, so I have a few different ones to recommend. The first one is one I never hear people talk about, so I really want to give it more love because I think a lot of you guys would like it, and that is Rustic Hearts by Amber Kelly. And this is the first book in the Poplar Fall series, and it's about a woman who ends up having to come back to her hometown. She hasn't seen her dad in many years, but due to someone being sick in her family, she returns home. She has to deal with the family drama, but she also falls for one of her dad's ranch hands. Very good, and I can't wait to read the rest of the series. And then I would recommend the Gibson Boys series by Adriana Locke. I've only read the first 2 books. The first one is called Crank, and this is about a guy who owns a mechanic shop, and he ends up having a relationship with a girl who works there. The second one is called Craft, and it's about a guy who is a teacher, and he ends up forming an online relationship on a dating website, and it turns out to be the librarian at his school, and it is their romance. I really liked this one a lot. And the next one I have is I'm Yours by Jennifer Van Wyck, and this is a single dad romance. The 2 main characters were best friends growing up, but then the hero moved away after high school. I think his heart was broken by the heroine, and now he is returning home to have his parents help him take care of his little daughter because he is a widow and he's taking care of her alone. And she ends up wanting to take dance classes, and her new ballet teacher turns out to be his best friend from growing up, who is our heroine. Very good, and this one does have a little bit of a mystery suspense element, so if you like those in your romances, I think you would like this too. And the last is a series called Cloverleaf Farms by Melanie Harlow. So far this one has 3 different books in it, all centering around different sisters in a family, and their parents own this big like wedding event center. The first one is Irresistible, and this is a forbidden romance about a single father and his nanny. The second one I think is called Untouchable, and this is a second chance romance. And then the third one is called Insatiable, and this one is a friends to lovers romance. And if you like enemies to lovers, I do have a couple for that as well. The first one is Hot Shot Doc by R.S. Gray. This one is a really funny rom-com about a real jerk of a doctor and his surgical assistant. It is their romance. They butt heads a lot. They really don't like each other, but their sexual chemistry is great. And then one of my more recent favorites is Hate Notes by V. Killand and Penelope Ward. This is also an office romance about a boss and his assistant, and they really butt heads, and they send these really funny emails back and forth that are like hate notes. Very good and also really steamy. And then if you're looking for a good rom-com, I highly recommend Tegan Hunter. She has 2 different series out that I have dabbled in. The first one is the texting series. I've only read book 1, which is called Let's Get Textual. And the 2 main characters in this one start texting each other thinking it is someone else, so they have the wrong number, and so they create this relationship via text message. This one was a really good time, and I don't know why I haven't read the rest of the series. And then the Slice series centers around this family-owned pizzeria and several people who work there. The first one is called A Pizza My Heart. She is the daughter of the owner, and she ends up having a friends to lovers romance. And then the second one is I Need You Tonight, and this one is about her twin and his romance with one of the other employees there who is a single mom. Both of them are really good, but they kind of have different vibes. I think that the first book is a little more light and fluffy, and the second book is a little more deep, and I really like that they center around a pizzeria. Another good romantic comedy author is Megan Quinn. I really like her Dating by Numbers series. I've only read 2 out of the 3 books, and the first one is called 3 Blind Dates, and this is about a woman who ends up going on a dating app where she has blind dates, and she's trying to decide between 3 different guys that she goes on dates with. And the second and third book in the series are the guys that she didn't choose in book 1. The second book is called 2 Wedding Crashers, and this one is about one of the guys she didn't choose, and he crashes a wedding, I think on like the Florida Keys, and he meets a woman who is also crashing the same wedding. So they decide to have this fling together while they're at the Keys, and they end up going to the wedding together, and it is their romance. It was really good, really funny. Both of them are hilarious, and I like that the second one took kind of a more serious twist at the end. Then for office romances, I have Boss I Love to Hate by Mia Kayla, and this is about a woman who is an assistant to this really big CEO, but he's a total jerk. But she needs a date to her friend's wedding because she learns her ex-boyfriend is attending and he is bringing a new girlfriend. So she asks the boss that she hates to attend with her, and it is their romance. This one is also really funny. I liked it a lot. Then we have Faking Miss Right by Claire Kingsley. This is also a boss and his assistant, but it is actually the boss who needs the fake girlfriend this time. His ex-girlfriend is now dating his really successful father, so he wants like a fake fiance or a fake girlfriend in order to kind of show that he's moved on. And so the assistant ends up moving into his house, and it is their romance. Really, really good, and I can't wait for the rest of the series. And then for the forbidden romance trope, I have Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. I know everyone loves this one, but I could not rave about it enough. And it's about a woman who has a romance with her boyfriend's father, and the heroine is 19. I think the hero Pike is like, I don't know, 37 or something. And it's forbidden for a couple obvious reasons. There's the age gap, but then there's the aspect that she's living in his house with her boyfriend. This one is amazing, and it's also a really steamy read. Then we have Park Avenue Player by Dee Keeland and Penelope Ward. This is also kind of enemies to lovers. It is about a guy who really doesn't like his nanny for his niece, and they end up having this affair together, and it's forbidden because she works for him. Really, really good. I really like Dee Keeland and Penelope Ward as an author duo. Then for some friends to lovers, I have The Guy on the Right by Kate Stewart. I know everyone has been recommending this one, but it is really good. It is a new adult romance that takes place at college, and it's about this guy who is always the guy who doesn't get the girl, and he finally meets a girl that he likes, but he instantly gets friend zoned. And it is their relationship kind of blossoming and the trials and tribulations that they face. Very, very good if you're looking for a good new adult college romance. And then Candy Steiner's latest release called Manhattan is also a friends to lovers romance, but this one is a little bit younger of an age group. I believe both of them are 18. The heroine has always had a crush on her best friend, and she's never vocalized her feelings and watched her best friend date other girls. And the summer after high school, he announces that he's moving to Manhattan at the end of the summer, and our heroine has to convince him reasons to stay. She kind of has to work up the courage to admit her feelings to him, and so she creates this bucket list of adventures for them to do before he moves, and it is very angsty, very emotional, and I really loved this one. Again, it is book 3 in a series, but you could technically read it as a standalone, and these are also really good small town romances. If you're not into romance, I do have a handful of non-romance recommendations. The first one is Jane Doe by Victoria Helen Stone. This is a very short thriller. It's a revenge story about a self-proclaimed sociopath. Really good. I don't recommend this second book in the series, but I do like this one kind of as a standalone. And I have Here to Stay by Mark Edwards, and this is about a newlywed couple who takes the in-laws to live with them, and they end up being the guests from hell. That's all I want to say about it. It's really good as well. Then I have When She Returned by Lucinda Berry, and this is a thriller that centers around a woman who goes to a cult and disappears. Then I have Last Summer by Carrie Lonsdale, and this one is an amnesia trope type of thriller, and it also has a little bit of romance in there with a love triangle. So it's kind of that cross of thriller and romance. Then I have The Girl from the Sea by Shalini Boland, also an amnesia thriller. Then I have the Stillhouse Lake series by Rachel Kane. This is a 3-part series. I believe book 4 is about to come out. And this is about a woman whose husband was a serial killer, and we're kind of following her after he was put in prison and how her and her kids have had to be on the run. All of these are really good. So if you're not in the mood for romance, I would really recommend these ones. Of course, there are so many other Kindle Unlimited romances that I love, but these are just a few that I really enjoyed. I'd love to hear some of your favorites and recommendations, and maybe I will get to them soon. As always, like I said, I will link all these down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys on my next one. Bye.